Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my 10 breakout players for the VCT 2024 season. I'm going to be going through all 10 players, letting you know why I think they'll break out this year. Um, and by breakout, I mean like either become more publicly known as a great player or become an even better player than they already were. Um, and yeah, just overall have a huge jump from where they were considered last year to where they're considered now. Um, if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave your list of who you think is going to break out this year in the comments below, and maybe some reasoning. And yeah, let's get right into it. So we're going to start with the Americas players, and starting with my North American players, which I have three of. We're going to start with the obvious one, Tens, who in these off-season events has been playing flex for Sentinels and has been amazing. Outside of the show matches that they played, they're undefeated this offseason, and in large part to Tens. He's had some insane moments, being playing the Omen now a lot. He's played KO, he's played Harbor, he's been playing Breach as well. Um, just really expanding his agent pool and becoming the player that he always should have been. He's got a real IGL now, which he hasn't had in what, 2 years, since probably you'd say Champions 2021, maybe early 2022, with Shazam. He kind of Shazam kind of fell off towards the end of that year. Def was really bad at the beginning of last year, um, and then they didn't have an IGL up until they signed John Cutie. He's surrounded by Zekin, who's an incredible duelist player. Um, Saucy, who's super experienced on the initiator and starting to get a lot better at the sky. Um, and now Zelsis, who again has a lot of experience and is very good at calling and like bringing up the vibes and everything. And I think there's an I mean, there isn't a ceiling on tens. If he learns everything, like if you put his aim with, I don't know, I can't like there's no player that pops to my head immediately, but like some of the smartest players like Ethan, if you put his aim with Ethan, that would be the best player in the game and it wouldn't be close. If you put his aim with Leo, again, like not that those players have bad aim or even like average aim. Like those players have incredible aim, but tens is just another level from everybody else. Um, and I think if you can put those mechanics and make him an even more intelligent and flexible player, I just think you gotta like there's no ceiling to that. And I think tens could end up being an incredible player this year and be a big reason why Sentinels wins a lot. Now, my next player here is Trent, who I think is on the other end of the spectrum from tens as well. He's coming in staying with this G2 core or this guard core, um, who hasn't had the best offseason. They really only played the Sentinels Invitational and then that show match um, here. But he, I mean, he's already a great player. Like, I think a lot of people would have him as a top 3 to 5 initiator in Americas. Personally, I have him number one. I think he'll end the year at number one. He has genuine potential to become a Leo-esque player for this G2 team in 2024, and I think he will. Um, I mean, just he's so good. He's so flexible as well. That's a big trait of his. Like he can play the Sky, the Sova, the Fade, the Viper, play Rays. What else has he played? Uh, Breach as well. He's played KO a little bit. I don't think he's as good at that. Um, and the Sage as well that he's been okay at. Like I think everybody knows how good Trent is, but I think he'll just continue to play at the level he played at the end of last year into Americas and just I mean, if he plays like the level he did in Ascension in Americas all year, I mean, Is that the best player in Americas? I personally think it is, and I think if you're going from like top three in your role to potential best player in the whole region, I think that's a big breakout. Now, some people would argue against that part, which I'm not going to entirely argue with, but I don't think you can argue with the fact that Trent could, in theory, become one of the best players in all of Valorant this year. And next up, we have our first and only Brazilian player, Havoc, who is going to be the flex player for Furia this year. He was a duelist player on Loud, or not on Loud, on the Union last year. He subbed in for Loud when Osbos was away, just for scrims and stuff. And personally, I wasn't super impressed with his duelist play. Apparently, he was a former flex player as well. Like, yeah, okay. I didn't know that before I watched. It was either Superdome or this Meg tournament. Um, and I learned that he was apparently a flex player before he was even a duelist player on the Union. And my God, is he good? Um, right now, he's not getting a lot of attention, but I think if Furia starts to do pretty well, he will get recognized as the goat that he is. I think I have him as like a top six flex player in Americas. Let me check that while I talk. I mean, his mechanics, first of all, are amazing. Like some of the best out of any flex player. Um, his util is actually pretty good. I don't think it's as good on KO as it is on Sky. His Sky is definitely his best agent. But I had him ranked as the sixth best player, no, best flex player, and that's behind players like Ethan, King, Jonah, Zeppa, and Asuna, which is extremely high praise for me, and ahead of tens even. Who that might have to be changed now. I made that before the Africa tournament. I think I have to change that now. Um, but yeah, Havoc is incredible, and I mean should have a pretty good year, barring any kind of like choking or like pressure or anything like that um, on the main stage. And he's just amazing. And then last up here for Americas, we have King, who I know he's already broken out and is an incredible individual player. Everybody knows that. But for me, I think this year he's going to have a breakout year as an IGL. He's going to get to really only have to play Viper on every map, which I think is his best agent. Um, Obviously, he'll probably play other agents on other maps like Ascent. He'll play KO, which he's really good at. And I think he'll have a similar year as an individual that he did last year. But bringing in Tex, bringing in a new coach, bringing in Osbos here, giving him more pieces to work with as an IGL, I think is really going to help him become a better caller. I thought he improved towards the end of last year, but wasn't amazing still. And I think giving him another offseason here and another full season to improve, I think he will become genuinely one of the best IGLs in Americas. I think he'll get into that top five range. I think I have him around like seven right now. Yeah, exactly there. Um, I think he could pass up some of these like low end, like, but also top end, like middle of the pack IGLs, I guess. Is the what I'm trying to say, and then like get up into that top tier, maybe with like Sadak and Boostio in that conversation. Um, and yeah, he's just also an insane individual player. I think he's going to get a lot of attention this year from a lot of people. If Leviathan starts winning, which I mean, I'd be shocked if they don't. And now we have my first player from EMEA, who I think is probably the most obvious pick for this list, in Yeti, who, I mean, out of all Sentinel players in the world, has some of the best mechanics. Um, on top of being like up there for like the best like pure Sentinel like instincts in the world, like with like maybe Nats and less maybe in that sense. I think he's even better than Alfier and Sagetsu at that, but Obviously, those two's like their aim and mechanics are so good. Some of the best in the world between those two. So you have to put them over Yeti. Um, but I think for Yeti, it's literally just he has to play more at a tier one level, and he'll prove that he can be an elite Sentinel player. Um, and I think he'll be exactly what this team needs, and kind of just become one of the best players in the world this year. I didn't even know who this guy was before this year or before Red Bull Homeground. But after I watched that, I was super impressed, and I think he'll continue to grow and become, as I said, one of the best players in the world. All right, and next up here we have Mystic, who at the end of last season, after he got cut from Fnatic, I did not expect to be saying this, um, but I mean, I did expect him to make tier one. To be fair, I didn't think he would have to drop down into tier two with Apex, but them putting him on smokes was the best thing to happen in this guy's career. You could argue that he's already broken out um, with what's it called, the Africa TV tournament, or just last year in general. He does some silly stuff with the Omen TPs, um, but it is very good. Like it, I mean, it's some stuff that like Mako does, some stuff that like, I mean, Tens was doing on the Omen, all that kind of stuff. I haven't fully watched the Afrika VODs, but from what I know, he played pretty well in that tournament. Um, and yeah, I just think he'll continue to show that he is the best smokes player in EMEA, as I've said, which isn't super high praise, but I still think like you're rating him over like, let's see, like Boaster, Ada Captain, Destrian, like players like that who again aren't that great, but like did I have him where did I have him ranked in the world? Oh, I didn't. Never mind. But he adds to the list of M's or smokes players whose names start with M, with Marv, the Mako, Meunier, him. Is there anybody else? Mazzino, Melzer, and I think that's it. I mean, you could kind of count RGL Meister uh, in that conversation, but yeah, he's very good. And yeah, as long as Liquid wins a bit in EMEA, maybe makes it to Shanghai, I think he'll definitely be considered one of the better smokes players in the world, at least above average. And yeah, I think he'll be a good piece for this Liquid team in the future. All right, and now we have MrFallen, who I think is going to possibly take one of the biggest jumps in all of the world this year as an IGL. Just because I know shocking take here. When you get better players, it's easier to IGL. Um, I don't think that's a hot take at all. I think the better pieces you have around you, the better you can call. And bringing in CNED, who's one of the best duelists in the world, and Yeti, who I think is going to be one of the best Sentinel players in the world this year, alongside the roster that they already had with Crack. So I think he's going to continue getting a better agent pool so they can run better comps, make it easier for Fallen to IGL, all that kind of stuff. And Ada Captain is pretty good as well um, in his own right. But I just think this foot team is going to take a huge step up, and a lot of that is going to be from MrFallen. I always thought he was a good IGL, but I think this year you could see him take a leap into like the Angel, maybe Redgar before he started trolling last year territories of IGL, and just become a very, very good IGL. I don't think he'll I think saying he'll get into maybe Boaster territory is a little too rich for me, but it's definitely possible. I think you could argue that this is a Turkish super team. Um, Outside of Alfier, obviously you'd want him, but uh, Yetege is easily the next best option, and I don't think they're really missing anybody else that I can remember. If I'm going to forget somebody there, so you can yell at me in the comments and tell me who I forgot because I can't remember it right now. Um, but yeah, I think he's by far the best IGL in Turkey, and I think he'll widen the gap even more this year, um, and continue to kind of be the hope of Turkey as a region. All right, and now on to our Pacific players, where we're going to start with Governor, who was kind of a okay tier 2 player last year statistically and just general success wise. But I think coming over to Pacific here, which is generally considered uh, the worst region in terms of like, I wouldn't say the worst region. I think one of the bottom two regions, but like an easier region where like I'd rather him come into Pacific here than play in Americas per se. Like if he was NRG's duelist or 100 Thieves duelist, then I'd have some questions. Um, but I think here for Talon, who's just trying to not be awful like they were last year, I think he's a great pickup here. His mechanics are insane. Um, just some of the like op shots he hits, even just with the rifle in his hands, it's still pretty good. Um, but I think he can play both duelists here, is extremely good, and has an extremely high ceiling. I think that's the main thing here. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton to say, because he's just one of those cracked players, kind of like Oxy in Americas for C9. Except I don't think he's as good as Oxy is, or will be good as Oxy is, as will be as good as Oxy is. Um, but I still think he'll be extremely good for Talon and just be a great piece for them to build around into the future. And next up here, we have Heroon from Zeta Division. Now, this guy was one of my favorite players that I watched in all of Tier 2 in Pacific last year. I'd say he was probably my second favorite behind Blaze King, but both extremely good Sentinel players on their teams. Now, Yeti is going to be coming in here playing Flex. Uh, Blaze King is going to be playing Initiator on Global. I don't know why I'm talking about him, but the reason I'm not going with Blaze King is because he's on a terrible team and playing off role, and I haven't seen him play on that Initiator. But Heroon here, who I'm actually supposed to be talking about, I had some doubts with them putting him on Flex. I just thought his Sentinel play was so good and strictly good on the Sentinel. But I was wrong. I was right about him being a great player, but I was wrong about him not being the best Flex player. Uh, yeah, I mean, he was just really good. His mechanics are really good. He'll continue to grow on this role. I thought his utility was actually fairly good before, or not before, in Red Bull Homeground. And I think he'll continue to get better in the offseason. I haven't watched these VODs yet. I did watch some of the detonation games, but I'm not watching this game with Urine on Jet and Depp on Reyna. There's just no way they run this comp. Um, but yeah, I feel like I've talked about so many other things, but Heroon is my GOAT and one of the players that I think will be vital to Zeta Division's success this year. And I think he will be very good and make this team very good. All right, and then our last player here is Izu. I considered doing Envy, but I think he's already kind of like well known enough that he's very good from the people that actually watch Pacific. So I went with Izu here, who played extremely well in the 10 Global Invitational. I have not watched the Africa TV tournament yet from them. I think I watched a little bit of this EDG game. I think I watched Bind, and he played okay. I don't think he did too much. But yeah, I think he'll be. I mean, he'll be this team's flex player this year, playing a bunch of random stuff, whether it be Smokes, Initiator, or even the Yoru that they played a little bit. And I think he'll be one of the best flex players in all of Pacific. Let's see, I came in and I already have him ranked fourth coming into the year, and I think he has potential to climb and pass up players like Envy, Stacks, and honestly even Forsaken if Paper X doesn't do as well. And yeah, I just think, I mean, the fact I'll talk about this every time I talk about Izu because I'm honestly kind of surprised I was so correct. But I watched him in Japan last year. I watched a few of his games, and I'm like, okay, this guy's not a duelist player. He absolutely needs to switch to flex. But if he does, he'll be very good. And he's switched to flex and is very good. Um, so I don't know. That might be my best take ever. Um, Even though it's like such a small thing that nobody's going to notice. But yeah, I just think he's one of my favorite players just because of that. And I hope he does very well for T1 this year, even though I think some of their roster decisions are a little weird. All right, I wanted to warn everybody that this might be a flashbang, so I'm going to switch to the Google Doc, but this is my final list of my breakout players for this year. I have Tens, Trent, Havoc, King, Yeti, Mystic, MrFallen, Governor, Heroon, and Izu. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Um, Tell me who you think is going to have a big breakout year this year. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.